Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Footy Ramble. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rocky. How you going, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. How's the last week been?
Pretty boring. We're in lockdown, so there's not much you can do. Just, obviously we're both in uni, so I'm assuming we're both doing uni work, big assignments, all that. Watched some footy. It was all right.
Fair enough,
But of
mate.
course we'll
Fair enough.
get into that later.
Yeah. So, of course, before we start, we do want to thank all the people that have tuned into the podcast last week, whether it was YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, even just looking at our reels. We appreciate all the support. Uh, so yeah, just make sure that if you're on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're on Spotify, follow the account so you know when all the new podcast episodes have been released. And if you're on Instagram, make sure you check out all our stuff there. Like, comment, follow. Any
All
support would
that
be great.
jazz,
So yeah.
all that
Um,
stuff.
yeah, pretty much. So first off, we'll kick into the weekend. So sum up the weekend's results in one word, Rocky.
Trash.
Trash. Well, yeah, it's been a
Trash.
mixed bag, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because
Go on.
yeah, because I was just going to say because it's good to see good teams play well, but in terms of the competitive element of it, wasn't really
It
competitive
really
weekend in
wasn't.
terms of results.
Like, obviously we're gonna get into the games, but Geelong had no answer for Melbourne, Port had no answer for Bulldogs, and that's it.
Pretty much.
So yeah, I mean, if we get into the Melbourne versus Geelong game, Melbourne won by 83. An absolute smashing. Geelong had no answer. Um, Max Gawn,
Oh, big
what can you
Maxi
say?
gone.
5 goals, 19 disposals, 33 hitouts, and he had 4 goals in the third quarter, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's
So
right.
yeah, a really
But
dominant performance
it
from
was
him.
the way that he got his goals as well. Like his first goal was a snap on the run around the body. His second goal was a 55-meter drop punt from
On the run,
on the run,
on the run. Yeah,
and then the others were just big contested marks. It was a dominant performance from the Melbourne captain. It was a
100%.
captain's
Yeah,
performance for 100%, and they needed their
yeah,
leaders to stand up that night, and Max Gawn definitely did that, didn't he?
yeah. He did. Petrarca stood out again.
Yeah,
32
of
disposals,
course.
1 goal. Jack Viney, 34 disposals, and Clayton Oliver. Obviously, he's been a really great player whole season. So yeah, and he had 27 disposals, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah,
27. So I mean, it was interesting because Viney, the guy that goes under the radar in that midfield three of Petrarch, Oliver, and himself,
yeah,
ended up with the most disposals, and I wouldn't say had the biggest influence, but he played his role really well, and he's a bit of an unsung hero of that midfield, isn't he?
yeah. I agree. Yeah, especially when you've got such dominant players, Petrarca, Oliver, all of them, and then you get Viney, 34 disposals, just kind of out of nowhere. Yeah, obviously he played as well. And I think it's a good time you step up during a preliminary final. So yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we do want to make a note though, because it's just started raining here, that if we hear any rain in the background, we apologize. We're trying the best we can. But yeah, that on that note, push on to Geelong now. Dangerfield, Dangerfield played well. He
30
tried
disposals. Yeah,
tried to lift their team, but other than that, I mean, Isaac Smith as well with 26 and a goal. But other than that,
yeah.
it was just everyone just kind of capitulated, didn't they?
See, no one really stepped up, to be honest. Even if Dangerfield had, even though Dangerfield had 30 disposals, there wasn't much of it. It wasn't much of an impact, to be honest. The forwards were all over the place. The midfield was all over the place. Defense was trash. Like it just wasn't a great team performance. And obviously this isn't the first time for Geelong that they've, you know, absolutely choked it in finals.
Yeah. Well, I think the
So,
best the best way to sum up their performance was they had a quick break in the fourth quarter, and they had Hawkins, Cameron, and Max Holmes, I want to say. I think it was those three running through on goal. And it was like two Melbourne defenders between them and the goal. And they nearly like butchered that. And I think that was the story of their night. As Cameron tried, Hawkins tried this like silly dribble kick across the goal to try and get it to his teammates, who ended up trying to hand pass it to Cameron. That was their first goal in the second half. So, I mean,
and what, one of their key players is Gary Rowan as well. He played 3.5 quarters, had 1 touch, and then got injured. And that was his game. That's it.
He probably. Look, they keep mentioning the 3-headed monster, but I don't know how much, in all honesty, Gary Rowan brings to the table in that 3-headed monster as such.
Yeah.
But another thing I want to point out is, how much do you reckon they were missing Mark O'Connor, Brandon Parfitt, and Tom Stewart on the weekend? Do you reckon that those three would have made an impact, or you reckon that,
Okay, 1 sec. All right, yeah. So I don't think those three would have made too much of an impact. They're great players, but you need a whole team to win. And I think it just goes without saying there's maybe, 2-3 players like Dangerfield, Selwood, and Guthrie maybe. They racked up disposals, not too much of an impact, got smashed. So I think to have another 3 players come in who aren't as good as those guys, I just don't think it would have made too much of a difference. What do you think?
Well, I have to disagree with you a little bit there, because I just think maybe Parfitt not so much, but Tom Stewart would have played ahead of Zach Guthrie, and Zach Guthrie just got beaten by Cozzy Pickett all night long.
True.
He just got dominated, and I think Mark O'Connor in that midfield mix would have been able to just add a defensive element, because I mean Selwood was forced to run with Oliver at most stoppages, and there was times where Selwood wasn't even in the same postcode as Oliver. I just think that, and O'Connor as a tag maybe would have had a bit more of an influence, and a Stewart in the back line would have just made it. Because the thing was that Geelong are very good in the air, but as soon as the ball hit the ground, they panicked like no tomorrow. And I think that shows a lack of a small lockdown defender. Unfortunately, came back to bite them, because as good as Jed Buse and Rory Atkins are going forward, they're not lockdown defenders, are they? So,
no.
I
mean, look, realistically, the only time they dug deep was when Tom Hawkins picked his nose during half time. So anyways, boom, next point. Talking points. So, Geelong rebuild. Are the young talent good enough? So you've got Jordan Clark, Quinton Narkle, Charlie Constable, Nathan Kruger. Apparently they could all leave, these guys. And I think Narkle could go to Richmond. I've been hearing a lot of rumors about that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts?
Jordan Clark's a Fremantle as well. In all honesty, no, I don't. I think Geelong are in a very, very awkward position, to say the least. They have 13 players over 30 or something like that. I think that's the number. And the young talent that's supposed to come in and replace them, either they aren't good enough because they're just not up to quality, or they aren't good enough because we haven't seen enough of them yet. I mean, because for all we know, Charlie Constable could come in and tear it apart, because he's getting 40 touches a week in the VFL. But he just can't displace anyone in that midfield because they're just too good. So, he's another one that probably will get a move on at this trade period if he's not guaranteed more game time next year. But I just think, based off what we've seen of those guys so far, they aren't good enough to replace the names that they'd be talking about.
100%. Is this the start of a Melbourne dynasty? What do you reckon?
I hate to say it, but yes. And now I say
I hate to say it.
Well, I don't. As much as I loved Brisbane dominating those 3 years, and any other team that's had a dynasty, it just gets a little bit repetitive. I don't know if that's just a bit biased or something like that, but
No, I agree because, sorry, 1 second. I agree because it does get a little bit repetitive. You'll have the Brisbane dynasty, you'll have the Richmond dynasty, and then the Melbourne, and then who's next? It's like, you want different winners each year, you want different teams playing well. So yeah, it does get a bit repetitive. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, well, since we've been alive, we've had 3 dynasties. We've had Brisbane when we were both pretty much born. We've had Hawthorn
Hawthorn,
that three-peat. Now we've just come off the back of Richmond one, which arguably they might not even be going away because they might come back good next year. But
True.
I think the team that Melbourne fielded against us didn't have a player over 30, and the team that Melbourne fielded against Geelong had one player over 30, which is Michael Hibberd, who won't even make their starting lineup, like their best 22. He's not part of their best 22. He's in there because Joel Smith got injured. So
true that, yeah.
They're a really young team. They're a really exciting team. They've built their team really well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really there are just players in there that have become so much better. I mean, Tom McDonald, start of the year, he was getting asked to explore his options in the trade period. Comes back. How many goals has he kicked this season? I'm not sure exactly how many he's kicked. Ben Brown, his contested mark work would never have been like that at North Melbourne. But yet, look at him now, taking pack marks on weekends. He may have done that occasionally at North, but it wasn't, the reason he was in that team. So I just think with all the players that got to come back, and I mean, even in the Casey team, there's so many young players in there that could potentially come through. Just trying to think, you've still got Melksham in there. He's still, he was part of the 2018 prelim final team, and by no means he's bad. And I mean, you got that Bowie kid. He's good. He's got a couple of games this year, but he'll develop further. Luke Jackson, he's another exciting talent. Bailey Frisch, he's their big X factor forward. And then I'm gonna rate my mate Fraser Osman. He hasn't even got a game yet, and he's basically an Ed Langdon like for like, So there's just so many good players.
Cozzy Pickett as well. He's like, I like to describe him. This might be very unpopular with you, but he just reminds me of Charlie Cameron a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
Fast, attacks the ball really aggressively. I think he's got a very bright future.
Maybe not Charlie Cameron. Maybe actually this is even probably a higher on him. Probably a Cyril Rioli, because Cyril Rioli used to be able to go in. Yeah, because I think Rioli used to be able to go into that Hawthorn midfield and have an impact, where Charlie, he tried to go into our midfield. He didn't really have much of an impact. Cozzy Pickett can go into that he was part of that starting midfield around the middle of the year. He was playing his best football part of that midfield as well. So, and I mean, we haven't even mentioned Oliver and Petrarca, both 25, 26. So even Viney, everyone thinks Viney's old. Viney's 27. So these guys are going to be around for a very long time.
True that. All right. We'll get into the next game. Portrays Bulldogs, very similar story to the Geelong Melbourne game, just another smashing. My thoughts heading into the game was, okay, so it's Port Adelaide at their home ground, right? The Bulldogs, they haven't been able to train, right? So you'd think they'd be a little bit rusty, and what can they do? You can't train. What can you do? A few push-ups in the hotel room, like go over game plans. That's it, right? And then they come out and they just dominate the whole game.
Yeah, there was quite a few people. So obviously you have your heroes, Jack McRae, 36 touches, most touches in a season now, overtakes Tom Mitchell's record. You got Bailey Smith, 23 disposals, 4 goals, 2 first quarter goals to get the Dogs underway. I think that was probably. I mean, look, he picked up where he left off from last week.
Yeah. Bailey Smith just keeps on impressing his 14-year-old girl fan base. So
pretty much,
they're going crazy for the last 2 weeks.
Actually, I have to say, when he kicked that first goal, did you see Wes Agar in the crowd with the old ice in the veins celebration?
I did.
That was funny.
At first, I was like, "Is that actually him, bro?" He was going. He was like.
At the time, I didn't see it. At the time, I didn't see it, but when I watched a bit of a replay of the game, I was like, "That's Wes Agar." Anyway. Why he's supporting him, I don't know, but anyway, it was good. One person I want to note, actually 2 people I want to note. Adam Treloar copped a lot of abuse. Well, not abuse, but media media scrutiny this week for his performance in our game against the Lions, and he bounced back. 23 disposals, 1 goal, but also importantly, 13 score involvements. You know, I just remember. Well, actually, I think this sums up that we've got plays that sums up their nights we're going with, but I think the play that sums up Port's night was Adam Treloar got the ball, sent a bit defensive wing, we'll say, so a bit further away from goal, and he's run all the way into their forward line. But that wasn't the alarming thing. The alarming thing was that 3 Port guys were giving chase, and Bailey Smith outran all 3 of them to lay a shepherd on the guy in front so Adam Treloar could keep running. And I think that just sums up their night, that Port were just outclassed the entire game. And 100%. I think we've ended up with the 2 best teams in the comp in the grand final.
I mean, look, just with Treloar, like, I think it's so typical of the media. You know, a player will have a series of, you know, bad games, and then they can't help themselves. They have to make absolutely disgraceful comments against them and say, you know, all sorts of nonsense. Treloar's a great player. Every single player is not going to have a perfect career where from day one they have like 30 plus disposals, 5 goals a game. Like, what do you want from them? You know, they're going to, like, they're humans too. They're going to have a lot of personal stuff that goes on. You know what I mean? So I think, look, I'm not going to go on too much about it. I feel like the Bulldogs coach, Bebo, he pretty much summed it up pretty well. He's like, how do you sleep next to these people that say such bad things about players, you know, such negative, you know, outputs of information. So
100%. And we have to remember
Port, though.
Just quick, I've still got that other guy I want to talk about, but Treloar, we've got to remember he got forced out of Collingwood because he wasn't wanted. Well, obviously we've come to know that it was a salary cap issue. But he got forced out the door at Collingwood, and the way he's bounced back this year has been quite nothing short of remarkable. One other person I want to mention is former Brisbane boy, but you know, this was the first time I really think this guy's played, like, you know, ever since he got that defensive shift about 4 weeks ago when Alex Keith, well, actually it's more than 4 weeks now, but when Alex Keith went down with a hamstring, and he played defense, and now he's playing forward in the absence of Josh Bruce. Josh Shackey, I mean, Aliir, that first quarter against Geelong, dominated in the air. Three intercept marks. I think it was 6 intercept possessions or something like that. Josh Shackey made him look like a fool on Saturday night. He kept him. He couldn't get near the ball. He couldn't do anything right. And Shackey, well, I mean, if he kicked straight, he would have kicked 5 of his own. But you know,
look, his ability to compete in the air and reduce Aliir's, you know, and their whole defense really was just amazing to watch. And you know, and we know how Aliir, he's been so dominant this whole season, so dominant, you know. That's why he's all Australian. And for Shackey to just absolutely shut him down, and the Port Adelaide defense was really, really good to see. And you know, but some positives for Port Adelaide. Ollie Wines, once again, he stood out with 38 disposals, a goal. Bonner had 32 disposals and a goal as well.
And Ollie Wines only had one touch. He only had one touch to halfway through the first quarter as well.
Exactly. So he really, you know, picked it up for the rest of the game. And he's had a great season. He averaged 32 disposals and 4 tackles a game, which is really impressive. So, yeah.
Will he win the Brownlow,
really
in your opinion? We won't go into this too in depth because Brownlow will be next Monday. So we'll have a quick chat about that. Do you reckon Ollie Wines for Brownlow, or do you reckon it'll be someone else?
It'll be someone else, but he'll probably be top 3.
Okay, so who wins it for you?
Bont.
Yeah, I was going to say Bont too. He's just been too good this year, hasn't he?
He's been really dominant.
Yeah, I just think the only thing that may go against him is Jack McRae might steal a few too many votes. That's probably the only. I mean, because that's the thing. We've got two guys up there. Well, the top 3 that we're thinking: Wines, Oliver, and Wines, Oliver, and Bont. They've got Boak, Petrarca, and McRae stealing votes off them. So, you know, could be a very interesting race. But enough of the Brownlow. Talking points. So we've got the Port Adelaide have now lost 2 home prelim finals in 2 years. Last year, they said that their defence probably needed a bit of reinforcement because they've always been known for a short defence. So they go and recruit Alir. They decide they get more games into Georgiades, Dersma, Butters, all these young up-and-comers, and Connor Rosier as well. Even Darcy Byrne-Jones, who, look, we said that we wouldn't point names, but he was shocking against Bailey Smith. He just let him run away with everything. But yeah, where do Port go from here, in your opinion?
I honestly don't know, because you've had 2 home finals. You'd think that everything would be in your advantage, especially this time around. As I said this before, home game. Bulldogs can't train. Bulldogs have had to travel so much, especially towards the latter end of the season. And Port have played better footy than the Bulldogs have coming into finals. Obviously, Bulldogs 3-loss streak, Essendon, Hawthorn, whoever else they lost to, I can't remember right now. And then they come to finals, they beat Essendon, they merely beat Brisbane. Sorry to bring that up. They make the prelim, and can't train, they can't do anything. So it's like, did the nerves get to them? What was the talking points in the change rooms? Did Hinkley be like, look, we got to step up, or did he just say, let's quit? Because it really looked like that. You know what I mean? It didn't look like they were wanting to win. It just looked like, man,
they like rocked Bulldogs up for another Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. Like Bulldogs got on top of them so easily and so quickly as well.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
To be honest, I actually don't know where they can improve. I thought that a tall defender would have helped. They brought in Alir. I think now it comes down to in between the ears and what goes on upstairs, basically. I think just they got to get their heads right to be able to get into that next stage in the grand final. But also now, big selection gamble. Stefan Martin hasn't played in 12 weeks, gets recalled. And, I think he was a big in with, Josh Bruce going down. So Tim English playing more as a forward. And we haven't even mentioned Aaron Norton. He was amazing with his.
He was amazing.
Harry Taylor
what were they
said.
They were talking about his contortion in the air or something when he goes up to mark the
Jack
ball.
Rewalt. I'm not sure what he's on about there, but Harry Taylor said that guys like Aaron Norton, who can really work hard up and down the ground and really can launch at a ball and grab him with that long reach, is just going to be a nightmare for defenders. And he showed that because Mackenzie was just outmatched at every single contested marking.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to call it, but
yeah.
He just, he was too good and set everyone else up. But I think that Martin coming back in just meant that I would have thought that if they went in with Lewis Young, they would have had to shuffle Tim English back into the ruck like they did against us. Because Lysette and Laddams would have just been too much for Lewis Young to handle. So Martin coming back in was a big selection gamble that paid off for Luke Beveridge.
Yeah. All right. You want to head into news?
Whoa.
What are we doing? Trades, injuries?
Well, we've got injuries first. So we're not going to touch on this too much because obviously we don't 100% know what's going to happen with the bye before finals. So Stephen May got injured, did his hamstring. He says it's just tightness and it won't keep him out of the grand final. I mean, he did come back on and play another quarter and a half of footy. But we'll hope that he gets up. Alex Keith and Cody Waitman will return. So Alex Keith with that hamstring, he should be back. Cody Waitman from concussion, he should be back as well. Only injury concern for the Bulldogs is that Lathan Vandermeer was subbed out with tightness in the hamstring, and he's a bit of a doubt before finals. But obviously they've got the extra week to prepare now, so we'll touch on what happens next week. And then first off, announced that the grand final will be 5:15 Perth time, 7:15. So a twilight grand final, another one following on from Brisbane's last year. What are your thoughts on the twilight grand final?
Personally, I think they're just trying to trial different things. Because obviously you did it once, it went pretty good. Some people liked it, or maybe I think a lot of people didn't like it, and some people didn't mind it. So I think they're just trying to trial it. You can't just do it once and then be like, oh yeah, that's it. It was bad or good. That's it. Like you got to keep on trialing it, see how it goes. Yeah. I hope and I think the grand final will be back at the MCG anyways, and I think it will be an afternoon game next season. I mean, and just generally speaking, I just hope games will be back in Melbourne. I really want to see my Bombers play once again. So you know what I mean. But yeah, look, with the grand final, great. Gives some evening entertainment. Looking forward to it. Yeah, should be a good game.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, to be honest, I'm impartial. I don't really mind if it's afternoon or evening. I think for afternoon, it's probably aesthetically a bit more pleasing because everyone pictures grand final like nice sunny day in Melbourne, afternoon, packed MCG. Obviously, MCG and packed stadiums aren't in that equation in Melbourne, at least. Hopefully, they get a full house at the MCG because I've got to say that the Melbourne crowd did really well to raise the atmosphere at WA. In terms of night, I think it's probably better for television viewing. I just think a lot more people would be more inclined to at night turn on the TV and watch the footy.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I'm
looking forward to seeing how Optus deal with it and what they, what special acts they do. And I know like Optus is such a beautiful stadium, so I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it should be pretty good. Now, trade news. We'll talk a little bit about trade news. Obviously, trade period hasn't opened. It won't open until the conclusion of the season. But we've still got quite a lot of trade news to go over. So, obviously, last week, a main topic was Roque Neal and the reports that he may end up going back to Fremantle. He's since come out and said that he will stay in Brisbane, which I'm actually pretty happy about, especially seeing as the second piece of news.
I think you're understating your happiness right now. You're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty happy about it.
I'm pretty happy about it because
jumping inside.
Yeah, I'll say, especially seeing as the next piece of news with Luke Parker re-signing for Sydney for 4 years, seeing as many thought that he could be a gettable replacement for Neal, and he re-signed pretty soon after the news broke. I've got to say I was pretty happy with Roque Neal saying that he was going to stay. We've also got Cam Guthrie re-signing till 2025. So part of that Geelong midfield. I mean, it's an interesting decision because how old is he now? We're doing a little bit of Google searching. We're Google searching through. We're Google searching during the podcast, and he is. You would think that we're a bit more prepared, but obviously, he's 29. 29, so 4-year extension. So that will take him to 34.
33,
oh, yeah, 33, 34 would be.
Yeah.
It's an interesting decision, but, now, we've also.
What I've noticed, with 33, I noticed a lot of players retire before 33. So is he still going to be like a valuable asset to Geelong, or will they just trade him away?
Well, the old saying from Lee Matthews was you offer your players a big contract until you're 30, and then after that you only offer them 1 or 2 year deals to keep them hungry.
Yeah.
Cam Guthrie, with job security to 34, I mean, it's keeping with the Geelong tradition of signing over 30s. But
they're pretty much a retirement home.
Yeah, at this point, they are. Yeah. Come play at Geelong before you retire. I mean, that was basically what happened this year. There were so many players that have, quite old that have come to Geelong.
Yes.
But I just think they're going to need a massive list overhaul, and I think signing Cam Guthrie on a big deal might come back to bite them in the rear end.
Maybe.
We'll see, but it's
Maybe.
happened. But in terms of genuine trade news, so obviously we've got Adam Chera requesting a trade back to Victoria. So Carlton is still in contention.
There's a lot of news. There's a lot of news surrounding this. Like there's Melbourne, Richmond, and Carlton.
Yeah, I don't think he'll go Richmond.
And Richmond's only recently as well. Only recently as well.
I don't know about Richmond. I just think Camden McIntosh, Jack Graham are considered their wingers. You got, their wingers as such. They're in good, their wingers are good. If anything, they'd probably look to sign more inside mids, which I don't think fits the bill for Adam Chera, more like Quinton Narkle, as we were saying earlier. But Melbourne's an interesting one because that's another one where I'm not quite sure where he'd find his place in that team.
Yeah, I'm confused. Like, why do Melbourne even?
Yeah, because he's not getting in ahead of Langdon. No way. Maybe you could say that Angus Brayshaw could be the one to make way, but I'm not quite sure that that's the best. That team looks pretty set. I think that those guys should just be focusing on the drafts and not necessarily Adam Chera. He probably doesn't want to go to Carlton though, because look, Carlton. We'll talk about that.
I'm just gonna say, why would you want to go to Carlton?
Yeah,
Carlton trash.
We're gonna go into that a bit later, but I don't know why.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, Carlton. Look, it's probably the best fit for him because he's got a guaranteed spot. He'll play pretty much every game. But in terms of his career, that's a pretty that's a step down basically. Because Fremantle are going to be pushing 100% next season. Carlton, they have the players, but no, I just don't think they're going to be pushing for it. Marviol Chol, interest from Essendon and Suns, with the Suns also wanting Coleman Jones. Now, Marviol Chol is a product of the Brisbane Lions Academy, so he's from Queensland. So there is this probably pool of him wanting to go home. I'm not sure if he'll go to Essendon. Not quite sure what role he'd probably play that second ruck forward role at Essendon, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think he'll be our backup ruck because we've got Draper and we've got Kane Baldwin, and pretty sure he just signed a new deal for another 1 or 2 years. We've got a lot of players that could be potential rucks, potential backup rucks. So for Marviol Chol to come in, I don't know. I think it'll be a great pickup. But it just means that the players that are already there at Essendon, they won't really have much of a spot because obviously Marviol Chol is a bit more of a developed player than some of the rookies.
Well, Peter Wright may turn into a permanent forward and have that, that 3 tall forward line of Marviol Chol, Peter Wright, and Harrison Jones when he's fully fit. Maybe that's what they're going for there.
Chol's a good intercept marker as well, so he could do well in the wing because we don't really have someone strong
Chol on the wing,
or at least this season.
Is he powerful? He's probably not got the tank to run on the wing, though, isn't he?
Probably not.
No, I don't reckon he's good enough on the wing.
But in terms of, yeah. All right, next one.
Yeah, but the Suns. Yeah, just quickly, the Suns also interested in Chol and Coleman Jones. That's probably the more ideal position for both of them. Coleman Jones plays that forward role with Ben King, and then Marviol Chol goes down to support as that second ruck when Jared Witts comes back. I think that's probably the best place for them both. Will it happen? I'm not sure, but we'll let you talk about Mitch Wallace.
Well, okay, Mitch Wallace, he wants to go somewhere else. I think it's pretty open. I think he's open to go anywhere really, because Waitman has taken over his role of small forward, so he's kind of lost his spot in the team. But I believe, and I think he believes as well that he's got a lot more to offer. So he'd like to go play somewhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Mitch Wallace was obviously part of that grand final winning team. He's barely played all year. You got Jason Johannesson, who's probably going to line up as the medical sub. So, those 2016 Premiership heroes are getting pushed out of the team by these Cody Waitman, Latham Vandermeers.
Johannesson, so he's been medi sub for a couple of games now, and he comes on and he just dominates.
Yeah.
So, clearly he's still a valuable asset, even if he's a medi sub. He should, he still dominates regardless. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. So it's going to be interesting because I know Brisbane were interested in Mitch Wallace a couple of years ago. Don't know whether would still be the same, would register the same amount of interest. In terms of potential suitors, I'm not quite sure who's actually looking at him. But yeah, look,
I think it's just like he just said, "Oh yeah, I want to go somewhere else," but no clubs.
Yeah, he's exploring his options. Matt Crouch re-signing with Adelaide for 2 years. I think that's a good deal for both parties. Matt Crouch is approaching his prime. He's an established midfield player, and they need that bit of experience in their midfield. So I reckon that's a good deal. And Jake Kelly going to Essendon. How do you feel about that?
I think that's really, really good. He had a really good season, flew a little bit under the radar. And yeah, I'm glad we've got him. I think Bulldogs and North wanted him, but like, why would you want to go to North anyway?
I mean, they're on the rise. They're on the rise.
Anyways, no, they are. And Bulldogs, I think they're like pretty set anyways. But yeah, I'm happy. I think he averaged like 18 disposals as well this season as a defender. So
bit of a rebounder.
I think he's a good he's a good pickup for Essendon. So.
And then also Jordan Dawson requesting a trade from Sydney back to his home state of Adelaide. So he'll probably end up at one of Port Adelaide or Adelaide. So he'll probably end up, apparently at this moment, he's a 60-40 chance of ending up at Port over Adelaide. In terms of his career, it'd probably be better for him to go to Adelaide because he'd be a lock spot. Not sure where he'd go and how that would work at Port Adelaide. But yeah, he's another one that's requested a trade back to his home state. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, especially with COVID around. A lot more players will be inclined to return back to their home state. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, yes.
There's another one. Ben King. So Saints and Essendon are already planning ahead for him. Like they want him. So
that's news in my ears. Well, there you go.
I read it.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard any reports based on that, but Rocky's obviously got them connections if he's getting that information. But yeah,
I'm up to date.
Yeah, just other news that's happened. We've got Tuke Miller and Dane Zorko winning their respective BNFs over in Queensland. We've got Nathan Vardy, 2018 Premiership hero Nathan Vardy, has announced his retirement after 80-odd games at Geelong and West Coast. Grant Birchall, after 287 games with Brisbane and Hawthorn and 4 premierships with Hawthorn, has also announced his retirement. So yeah, a few big losses there for those teams.
Just quickly, like shout out to other retirees like Eddie Betts, Hooker, Hill from Hawthorn, Hooley, Asprey, all of them. They've been great players for footy and for their respective clubs as well. So obviously whoever else has retired this year as well. So,
or going to retire, because I think that will still have a bit more. So we also, what else has happened? Nathan Jones returning home to see the birth of his twins. I mean, that would have been a massive call because he's been part of that Melbourne group for, well, every Melbourne memory I have is of Nathan Jones being part of that team. So, to be potentially missing out on a grand final medal or something like that, I mean, family comes first, of course, but I think that that would have been a really tough decision for him to make.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Family over everything. Family is everything, and he's obviously done a lot for the club. He deserves to be out there playing, with his with his boys, with the Melbourne Footy Club. But family is everything.
Family comes first.
The only answer is family. So
yeah, pretty much. Righto, Dom Toretto. Anyway, Bob Murphy joining Freo as the new head of football. So he gave an emotional farewell to Andy Marr at 11:16 SC, and I don't know if you saw that. That was quite funny. Kind of like, what are you doing, man? I'm kind of like doing everything. Yes, I think he's doing everything. So that's another post-football role for Bob Murphy. Now, I'm going to let you take this one. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction. So shout out to all the Carlton fans out there. Carlton asked Collingwood for advice on how to run a process to find a coach. So I know you were pretty excited to talk about this. So talk to me about Carlton.
If I was to sum up them in one word, they're trash. I'm kidding. No, I think we've just lost a lot of fans. But anyways, so fans of the podcast. Anyways, so the problem with Carlton, actually not the problem with Carlton. Damn, I have so many thoughts in my mind about Carlton that I'm just mixing them up. So in terms of this story, in terms of this headline, it's pretty self-explanatory as to why it's really funny and why it's kind of embarrassing for the club. Yeah. So like they go to Collingwood and they're like, hey, how do you, we don't really know how to do this. We've never done this before. Definitely haven't done this before. How do you find a new coach? And they're like, we need help.
And that's their biggest rival as well. Like Carlton-Collingwood rivalry in recent years hasn't been what it once was, but those two have been rivals for pretty much the entire existence of the AFL. And now they're going to each other asking how to sign a coach, as well as the Blues sacking their CEO. So Blues are in a bit of a pickle. No CEO, no head coach. Don't really know what the club's doing. With a squad that realistically should probably be pushing top 8. I mean, it's going to be...
It's music to my ears. It's music to my ears. Anyways.
Right. The big Essendon supporter. And then also VFL Grand Final, VFLW, I keep saying it again. VFLW Grand Final has been cancelled. So the Pies and the Cats. So we might have someone in the future from one of those two teams join us on the podcast. That's a bit of a hint of potential future guest. But we just want to quickly, we've already kind of touched on the Bulldogs' road to the granny, but I just think that we're giving it its own section because it was quite remarkable what they've done. Yes, sorry. You can stick your hand up.
With the whole Bulldogs thing, I want to talk about their road to the granny. I just want to just speak about how it's not really fair that they couldn't train before a preliminary final. Obviously, it doesn't matter. They absolutely smashed them and did fantastic. So it really doesn't matter now. But just prior to the game, my thoughts were like, you've tested negative to COVID 14 times in 25 days.
Yeah.
They're following rules. They're doing everything they possibly could. And you're like, no.
Yeah, and it's not even like they're going to be interacting with everyone from Adelaide. It's not like they're asking to go down to the pub and have a beer. They're just asking to go on an oval by themselves. Every other state's allowed them to do it in the entire season. So why is it different now?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it is quite, that's 48 hours before a big prelim final where they can't train. Maybe you could almost argue that maybe help them because there's that 48 hours rest that they could get after they've been in 5 states in 14 days playing, down in Tasmania, flying up to Queensland to play us, and then flying down again to South Australia to play Port at home. Like, those are big games, and, they've stood up in every single one of them. So, got to commend the Dogs on that.
Shout out to Cam Zoha. He found his dog. He lost his dog, and then he
saw that.
It's not Huge news,
Huge news.
but obviously,
Well,
the dog
I
means a
do
lot,
want to, I
so,
do want to quickly touch on that because
yeah, go for it.
he spoke earlier in the season about the importance of mental health, and he said that he was struggling with his mental health until he got his doggy. Obviously,
Yeah.
obviously that would have been pretty difficult. Him, like losing. Well, I don't 100% sure. Apparently, rumors going around that he threw a wooden spoon too far, and the dog like went to fetch it, and then he didn't
I
come back,
saw that.
or something
saw
like
that,
that.
yeah.
Not quite
That was
sure if
quite
that's
funny.
100% true, but yeah, look, it's really important to his mental health. So I'm really happy for him to have found his dog, and yeah,
Same.
it's pretty happy for him. So I think that pretty much wraps us up for this week, doesn't it?
Yeah, we actually got through a lot this week.
Yeah,
Wow.
there was quite a bit of
That
stuff.
was great. Man.
Yeah, just quickly, I don't know if he'll be watching this, but Will Collins, hopefully we didn't mean Carlton too much for you. He was a bit upset last night when we were watching the F1. Speaking of which, I was also going to get called a plastic fan if I didn't mention this. So yeah, big other sport. I know this is a footy podcast, but shout out to Danny Ricciardo for a big win at the Monza Grand Prix last night. And again, Cristiano Ronaldo going back to my boys, Man United, and scoring two there. Anyway, it's a footy podcast, so I'm not going to go too depth into that, but just wanted to quickly shout out those two. But yeah.
Sounds good. Well, everyone, thank you for watching once again. Thanks for the support on the first one. Make sure you check out our other socials or on different podcast platforms. So if you go on our Instagram, you can check all that out. And yeah, Matt, any final words?
No, I think that's pretty much it. So next week we'll have the episode before the Brownlow. So it's going to be interesting because we're going to be recording it before the Brownlow, but we're going to be publishing it after the Brownlow. So yeah, we'll probably talk a little bit more Brownlow than who's going to win. Obviously we'll have the winner when we publish this. But we'll give our predictions and see who's going to win that. We'll also talk about the grand final, who we think is going to win that. We'll know a bit more in depth of whether guys like Stephen May, Alex Keith, and all of them will play. Although at this stage they're supposed to all be playing. But yeah, sounds good, mate.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
till next week, guys. Thanks for tuning into the Footy Ramble podcast.